Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're talking about the case of James Barrier. I want to talk about this case because I want to say, maybe a year or two ago, I was watching a show. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like an old true crimey show, and a case was being talked about that was incredibly baffling, and there was just so many elements to it, and then the ending just dumbfounded me. And for years that case has sat with me, but I could never remember the name because I had tuned in halfway through. And then when I saw this person's name, James, and I started reading into his case, I was like, this is the case that I had watched that kind of stuck with me. And I wanted to talk to you guys about it because it's classified as a suspicious death, and it's definitely suspicious. There's just so many elements to it. There's a lot more to the story than what I'm even going to be able to tell you about. So I suggest highly doing your own research, going through the links that either I provide down below or just, going and doing your own. There's just so much to this that I just couldn't include, but I tried to include the really relevant parts. So with that being said, all the links I used to research are down below. There's also a link to my other podcast, Sinister, if you'd like to check that out. And other than that, let's go ahead and get into this. So people would use the phrase larger than life to characterize James Christopher, or as some people called him, Buffalo Jim Barrier. He was voted Las Vegas's most colorful character by the Las Vegas Review-Journal in 2005. He was a former pro wrestler, an auto mechanic, and a business owner. He was so many different things. He was outspoken and self-described enemy of the mob, and a constant critic of his nemesis, a reputed mob-affiliated club owner named Rick Rizzolo. And Jim was the kind of person who had friends in high and low places. He could just befriend everyone. Celebrities, business moguls, journalists, politicians, but he also befriended the people that were overlooked and the underserved people. So some of the people that were a bit lower on the totem pole, people that were, I saw uh poorer people, minorities, people that just often get looked over. He was a friend to them, and he loved everybody, and everybody loved him. He was just a really great guy. He was a single, loving dad to 4 girls, Jessica, Jennifer, Elise, and Jerica. He moved from Ohio to Sin City in 1971 when he was 18 years old, and he was determined to succeed in whatever he decided to do. He signed a 30-year lease at a location in an industrial road strip mall next to a strip club, and that is where he would open his auto repair shop, which was called Allstate Auto and Marine, which operated until his death in 2008. His career spanned to the auto shop, to being a pro wrestler, to being a wrestling promoter, to a wrestling school owner, to even a cable TV star, and he became kind of like a local celebrity, if you will. He also sought to help marginalized people and fight greed and consumption and corruption wherever he could and whenever he could. An example would be that he became loved by the native community in the area, mostly due to how much he really disliked Rick Rizzolo, which was the owner of the Crazy Horse 2 shop strip club, which they believed was egregious and was using the misappropriation of native symbols and imagery. And the thing is, Rick was also his landlord. And I want to be very clear here, some articles say that Rick was his landlord. Because when we get into the story, you're gonna be like, this is really obvious where stuff is going, and it's just whether his landlord is also his nemesis. There was a couple articles that said that Rick was his landlord, and some that said that he wasn't. But I wanted to include that just in case because I thought that was an interesting tidbit. And Rick was his main focus of his fight against greed and exploitation. They would have a very bitter turf war for years. Rick wanted Jim gone so that he could expand the club, and this turf war led to a nuisance complaint and even harassment. In June of 2006, it seemed like there could be an end to this, turf war when Rick pled guilty to federal tax evasion and racketeering and was sentenced to a year in prison. So the court ordered Rick, to sell the club, but attempts to do so were unsuccessful. U.S. Marshals seized the club in September 2007, and in April 2008, less than a year later, Rick was released. That same month, Jim was found dead under under what his family considers suspicious circumstances. So, on the morning of April 6th, 2008, a maid at a Motel 6 on Boulder Highway found Jim's body laying face up with his pants pulled down around his ankles. There was a bottle of Valium that was also found in the room. There was a white powder that seemed to be in his beard and shirt. The room was undisturbed. The wallet, his wallet only had $1 in there, even though his daughter said that he would carry sometimes up to $1,000 on him. Keys to his Rolls Royce were found in the room, but the vehicle was not in the parking lot. Later, it would be found in a spot that had already previously been checked. And this vehicle also seemed to have also been cleaned before being put back into that spot. So foul play was not initially suspected, even though he had been receiving death threats prior to his death. He was some articles say like he was under like this impression that any attempts to kill him would be by a woman, possibly using drugs. So this is apparently something that he has said or has alluded to. The article was a little unclear, but he was under the impression that that would happen to him. Later, a woman called Lisa would be found out that she had been in that same room with him at the same time. At some point, she told cops that he had a seizure, and I guess she left him there. I guess after he had the seizure or something, because she would also say like she left a voicemail on his phone asking him if he was okay. So that's kind of weird. As far as I could tell, nothing else happened with this Lisa person. I don't know if she was questioned further. That's all I know about this Lisa and that end. On April 12th of 2008, Buffalo Jim was laid to rest by masses of mourners who gave tributes, prayers, and songs, and it was a giant funeral because he was loved by so many. There will be photos on the screen of some of his memorial, and you're just going to see just like how many people really showed up for him. So, Las Vegas Police Department dismissed foul play due to mostly the surveillance video from the motel, which showed that he checked in willingly under no stress. The coroners ruled his death accidental. The coroner citing, I might say this wrong, dilated cardiomyopathy, I believe. Cocaine was found in his system and believed to be a factor. Toxicology showed 20 milligrams or milliliters of GHB in his system, which the coroner said did not contribute. And after this autopsy report, the case was closed after that. So Jim's daughters, they were not happy with this and said that he once used drugs in the 80s, but he no longer did. His family believes that it was homicide. That is what they believe. They believe that he was drugged and brought to the motel in his car, and then the vehicle was taken away and cleaned. His daughters believe that he could have been a mob target due to his very outspoken nature. An independent pathologist was hired to perform an autopsy, and the family was promised visual and audio and written documents when this was completed. But the pathologist said, and I quote, "I need to hold on to the file in case it gets to court, or in case it goes to court." So yeah, he's just holding on to it. As of 2018, no more information was released to the family. They never got that information from that pathologist, which is super weird. The family has requested an exhumation of his body to determine any recent history of drug usage, which the coroner has denied. And to this day, this case remains closed. So let's talk about it. Now, is there a possibility that Jim was doing drugs on the side and he maybe like fell back into old habits? He didn't want to tell his daughters. Maybe it was something that he was ashamed of, or something like, I can get off this, like they don't need to know, kind of thing. And they just were under the impression that their father was not on drugs, and this really was an accidental death. Jim went to this hotel for whatever reason, maybe for a drug deal or something, and he ended up dying. Yeah, that is incredibly possible. Like, I'm not saying it's not, but if the daughters are saying like this wasn't in his nature, he stopped doing it, I'm gonna believe the daughters. And you might be thinking, well, there was cocaine in his system. So yes, there's cocaine in his system. That doesn't mean he willingly did that. There's just too many factors for me. Like, I think it's pretty obvious that these very outspoken people that are outspoken against the bad people, greed, mobs, all these different things, they always tend to have really weird and sinister endings. And I definitely think that it was homicide. I just, I think it's weird that whether he said or he had alluded to that a woman was going to kill him with drugs, and then he is found dead with drugs in his system, and there was a woman with him at some point. I definitely think that it's weird. I don't necessarily think that's a coincidence. I'm not saying that this Lisa did it. But I'm saying that is super fishy. Uh, the pathologist that was hired later on for the family, how they were promised all this information, and then he's like, no, I'm going to hold on to this file just in case it goes to court. It's just like, why do you not want the family to see? Like, what are you hiding from the family? And then the coroner denying their request to have his body exhumed. Like, what are you wanting to keep from the family that you're just, like, if you weren't hiding anything, you'd be like, okay, exhume his body, let's show them, like, our findings are correct, let's let them put this to rest, let's let them grieve. Like, if you really believed it was not homicide, why are you so against proving it to the family? You know what I'm saying? You can't look at this case with everything I just laid out and say, like, it's not fishy. Like, his vehicle being moved and then being moved back and it's being cleaned. It's just, there's too many pieces to this that aren't explained that make me say, yeah, it's homicide. And for some reason, I think the cops in the coroner is covering it up for some reason. But that's just how I feel about this case. How do you feel about this case? Like I said, even when I had tuned in to this a couple years ago on the show I was watching, and it immediately sucked me in because just hearing so many different details and then how it ended, it just blew my absolute mind. So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you believe it was homicide? Do you think it could have just been drugs and his daughters just didn't know? Do you think that the cops and the coroner are covering up for someone, possibly mob affiliations? I am not saying that the Las Vegas police has anything to do with the mob. I am just saying that's out there because Jim's beef with the mob. I am not. I am just saying, in my humble opinion, do you think that could be a chance? I don't want to be a target. I'm just kidding. But let me know your thoughts down below about this case. Did it also blow your mind like it blew mine? Let me know down below. Thank you so much for listening to this video, and thank you so much for listening to Jim's story. I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.